What is going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. Guys, some Trey Hendrickson updates. Very interesting updates indeed, because we thought that the Trey Hendrickson to anywhere else was pretty much closed. The Cincinnati Bengals, after signing both Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, said that after some cap moves that they made, we're still going to work on a deal with Trey Hendrickson. Well, some recent developments happened. Trey Hendrickson actually went on, I believe it was the Pat McAfee show, and talked about how there has not been strong communication with him and his agents at all amongst the Cincinnati Bengals organization. Now, Cody, I want to give more context to what that detail means. I don't know if you know what that specifically means or not. Don't know if some of the audience knows. So what happened, guys, is that basically when the Bengals were trying to acquire or were trying to get extensions done for T. Higgins and for Jamar Chase, the two people that were handling this was the GM and like the second in command for the Bengals. So you had the upper echelon of the business people in the organization making those decisions, working to try to get it done, right? And they were in constant communication with Jamar Chase's agents and T. Higgins' agents. They're represented by the same agency. But the problem you've had with Trey Hendrickson and why he's saying there's not been very good communication, it's not that the Bengals haven't been communicating with him, but here's the difference. The agent for Trey Hendrickson hasn't been talking to the GM or to the second in command. He's been talking to the third person in command, the fourth person in command, the fifth person in command. They're going further down on the echelon of people that handle these decisions. So, like, the problem is that Trey Hendrickson's agents are not communicating with the people that are making the decisions. They're talking with a middleman. They're talking with someone about what our number is, and then that person that finds that information, relays that information back to the GM. Then the GM tells them, no, this is what we want to do, gives it to that said middleman, and then that middleman contacts the agent, right? So Hendrickson feels kind of disrespected in a way that you would put all that emphasis on trying to bring in Jamar Chase and T. Higgins to where your GM and your director of operations people are directly communicating with them. But you're not doing the same thing for me, which is showing me that you're really not trying that hard for that specific type of thing. So now the resurgence of the Trey Hendrickson getting traded rumors seems like it's popping back up. And Cody, I mean, what's your reaction to hearing that?
It's just wild stuff, man, that Trey Hendrickson has to come on to the actual Pat McAfee show and say that, like to come out and say that this communication has been poor, right? That's crazy for the guy that just led your franchise in sacks, and not just your franchise, led the league in sacks the last number of years. It's just wild to me that it's come to this point where I just kind of look at this and I say, how in the world have the Cincinnati Bengals allowed this to happen? Like, how have they not somebody, been in communication with even the second in command, the people making the decisions, right? It's baffling to me how it's kind of still been drawn out. Because like you said, Derek, we thought a number of weeks ago, this is done. He's going to get re-signed maybe this week. That's what we were thinking. And it's crazy how it's just developed to the point where I don't know what's going to happen, man. Like that, those are some strong statements from Trey Hendrickson live to an audience. Like that's crazy. That's some wild stuff when it comes to the contract, right? And Cincinnati already, I mean, they don't have a lot on defense already as it is. So you would think if there's one guy you want to keep around, it would be your leading sacker from the last couple of years. Really, one of your only few true game wreckers on your defense. So
Yeah.
that's just wild to me. Like that it's gotten to that
Cincinnati
point.
Bengals will Cincinnati Bengal, bro.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that has now led to a trade proposal on Bleacher Report. Cody reposted this the other day. So this is what would happen for said trade proposal. The Colts would get Trey Hendrickson and the Bengals 2025 first round pick, the 17th pick, and the Bengals would get our 14th overall pick and then our 45th overall pick, which is our second rounder. So basically, the Colts would be pick swapping from 14 to 17. We would get Trey Hendrickson. They would get our second rounder. Cody, what do you think of this trade when you see this right off the bat? Is this good? Is this bad?
I'm kind of torn on it. Like the problem for me isn't necessarily the compensation. It's just the contract you're going to have to hand out. Right.
Yes.
And I think you could potentially leverage that. But I mean, we'll have to see. You know, there's probably a ton of teams that are interested, but maybe you could leverage that into making it a future second or a conditional, third that could turn into a second. Like you could do some of that. It's so hard because you just have so many needs right now on your defense. And 45 is it's a premium type of pick there for a 30-year-old guy that's going to demand a lot of money, nearly $30 million, right? So I'm wondering from that standpoint, can that work as leverage for the Colts or whoever to potentially make that happen, from Trey Hendrickson? Because obviously we know the Colts are interested in Trey Hendrickson. We've heard it all along. So is there a way where the Indianapolis Colts could keep this second-round pick this year? I would love that if they're able to do that somehow, even if it's a third and a fourth next year or something.
Yeah,
because it's such a high, it's such a premium pick right there at pick 45. It's hard to let that go, especially because hey, if you're sitting in Chris Ballard's shoes and this might be your final year, you put it on the next guy. You go and get your guy this year. You get as much as you possibly can. Adding ammunition to your roster this year. That's kind of where I said that.
Yeah, this is a tough one because it's like basically, the Colts, and that's the thing too, is the Colts, you're losing three. Not only if you're the Colts, you're losing 3 draft spots in this first round as well. And that could very well impact how you do things in the first round. Maybe the Indianapolis Colts really want a specific first rounder, because remember, again, it's the problem with Trey Hendrickson, and we'll bring this point back up. Yes, Trey Hendrickson right away will likely be more impactful than any player you could get right now. Likely, right now. But the problem is, you're not going to get him for more than 3 more years. You're going to give him an extension, which is likely going to be a 2-year contract sort of deal. And by the time he's done playing out his contract this year, and then your extension, which is in 2 years, he's going to be 34 years old. And edge rushers are not elite at that age. They just never are. And so you're looking at it and you're saying, so and now again, Trey Hendrickson's impact is great, but it's not for very long. The difference is if you pick somebody in the first round or the second round, you're banking on the idea these are going to be 8-9-year players for your organization. Like that's the difference here. So you're trading longevity and 1 or 2 new players for an immediate impact guy that is going to be a very short-term thing. So again, that goes into the whole point. That's why the trade hasn't happened yet, because Cincinnati is not going to get high value for the trade stuff that they have. Now, again, I like the premise of this trade. I think that it would be very fantastic if the Indianapolis Colts say, hey, instead of giving them a second round pick for this trade scenario, give them a third, or maybe give them your 4th this year and a third or fourth, or maybe like a fourth this year and a fourth next year, with the condition that if Trey Hendrickson does this, that moves to a conditional third, like something like that. So not only are you getting a more premium position in the draft if you're the Bengals, sure, you might only be getting a fourth this year, but you could potentially get a third rounder the next year after that to make up for it, because then at least the Indianapolis Colts are not having to give up a ton of their, because remember, like I said in my original point, you're moving back from 14th to 17th. Maybe the Colts wait, Cody, until maybe if Tyler Warren gets taken off the board early, maybe they say that would be grounds for moving back a few spaces, and they think that that would be worth doing, because then maybe they could take Colston Loveland, maybe they could take Jahad Campbell if he's still there, in that sort of circumstance, and still get Trey Hendrickson. This is the type of trade that I would expect the Indianapolis Colts to maybe pull off on draft night. This is the type of trade that you'd be thinking something blockbuster like this gets taken draft night, because teams are waiting to see what players are available when they draft and when they don't draft. So this would be a great trade if you can just make it to where that second rounder isn't quite a second rounder.
Yeah, well, I think also, Derek, we talked about it. We did a video. I'm not sure if this one will come out before that or not, but did a video about the stuff about Anthony Richardson, about the Colts really wanting to make this emphasis to win now, right? That's like their big focus, is win by any means necessary. And I keep going back to that, and I say this is the type of move that would reflect that on top of what you've already done, right? Because you add a premium corner, a premium safety, and a premium edge guy. I mean, that's swinging for the fences, man. And like I said, going back to what I said about Ballard, if this is your last chance, wouldn't you want to do everything possible? Forget about the future. Forget about developmental stuff and guys,
to worry about
looking long term. Like he doesn't have the luxury to afford himself to look the next 5 years. He just doesn't. So that's kind of where I look at it and say, would that be enough to push the Colts to get it done? To make it happen, because you so desperately say you bring Hendrickson in, he plays for 3 years, but you look at that and you say those 3 years were absolutely fantastic. And they were enough to help us win the division, potentially make a playoff push, right? Do some, turn our defense from an average unit to an above average unit. Would that be worth it? Yeah. And that's kind of what I would say in terms of like, could the Colts make this happen, is because that's kind of where you're at right now. And you really don't have right now an alpha on that edge group. You just don't. You don't have a guy. That's right. That's anywhere close to a Trey Hendrickson right now. So that would be kind of my thing right there.
Yeah, no
where
doubt.
The Colts are right now as a team, where Ballard is, where Steichen is, heck, even where Lou Anarumo is. Because if they all get gone, he's probably gone too.
Yeah,
get
maybe.
As much firepower as you can to win at whatever means necessary.
If you're any means necessary, and if you're winning by any means necessary, and if you're going to go down swinging. Go down swinging. Try, at least. And at least then, at least the thing is with the Indian, you know what? And this is a type of move too, Cody, where people look at it and say, fans may look back at the end of the season and just say, well, we can't say that Chris Ballard didn't try. Like, I mean, at least we know that he at least tried to make, at least one side of the ball, like one of the best units in football at that point. If you have Charvarius Ward and Bynum and Hendrickson and you draft more defensive help this year, I mean, this could very well be a top 10 defensive unit. This could very well be. And if you're a top 10 defense and your quarterbacks improve, this is very well a team that could very well win the division, could very well make the playoffs, and all of these other things. We'll have to see, obviously, but at least it shows that you're trying. At least it does.
And I think that's been mine, yours, and a lot of Colts fans' biggest issues with Ballard. It almost seems like you haven't tried to be competitive at times, right? You haven't done what's necessary to push yourself into playoff contention. And then you sit here year after year with 7-8 wins, and you're like, Well, that's why, because we're not doing what it takes by any means necessary. But this has kind of been a new Chris Ballard, a new philosophy for the Colts in general. So I do kind of wonder that. Like, would that potentially be enough where you say, if I get fired, okay, but at least I knew I did everything I knew to do at this point to help my team.
Yeah.
That's where it is. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. Again, a lot can happen. Maybe it does get resolved. Who knows? But if it continues to be the way it is, man, I think that just keeps that door open, just a crack, potentially, for the Indianapolis Colts or some other team to come in and swoop it up. And you would think that if any team has the inside track, it would be the team with this former defensive coordinator, where the last couple of years he has thrived in.
Yep, 100%. I mean, it'll be interesting to see if the Indianapolis Colts do something like this. Again, there's still no guarantee that the Bengals will trade Trey Hendrickson, but it sure does sound like Trey Hendrickson is not happy with how the Bengals are approaching this. So definitely means things are more in the open. But that's going to do it for this one, guys. Let us know your thoughts on this type of potential move. But thank you guys so much for all the support. And as always, guys, go Colts.